So the last thing I remember, clear as day, was grabbing the door handle of the classroom and I passed out.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I think my body's falling apart a little bit, but
Yeah, that's not good.
I have this like weird thing where I can't lift my arm. Did you tell me yesterday you think it's frozen shoulder?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
based
can't.
on nothing, based on no medical background. But my
Yeah.
mother-in-law had a frozen shoulder.
Oh man, it seems a little bit better today. I can move it more, but I just suddenly couldn't lift my arm or hold anything in my arm without excruciating pain.
That's not good.
It's not great, but I don't have time to go see a doctor right now, so it's just going to have to
No,
hold out. How was your week?
it was okay. I went back to work, so it was chaotic, like getting kids to and from school.
One thing I feel like we will be remiss if we do not mention the passing of Her Majesty the Queen. Were you at work when the news broke?
Was I? What day was it?
A Wednesday or a
Oh,
Thursday?
I think it was Wednesday. I wasn't at work. No. And that was during my week off, I believe.
Oh, yeah. My work is
Yeah.
very divided. There are some of my coworkers who are devastated for the passing of the Queen, and there are some that are like, she was like a racist old white lady.
I'm just ambivalent. Like, also, how are we shocked? She's 97 years old.
Yeah,
Like,
she
what
lived a
for her,
really good.
like, it didn't come out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Like, she was gonna
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care much about the monarchy. I'm not like hardcore, like waking up at 4 in the morning to follow along.
Yeah, I keep an eye on like news and social media things that come out, but it
Yeah,
wasn't until some of the truths came out with Meghan Markle and what's his
yeah,
name, Harry. It just seems weird that Canada's part of a monarchy, and I don't know all the ins and outs, but it seems weird. And our prime minister announced last week that they're going to have a national holiday for the death of the Queen. This would be like an annual holiday. Then there was talk with Alberta, our province, whether or not we would observe it. And I just thought if we observe the dying of the Queen, but we don't observe our Truth and Reconciliation Day, I'm
yeah,
moving out of the province. But luckily,
okay,
I guess we're just not celebrating either, or either. I
yeah,
shouldn't say
I
holiday,
guess.
like a federal day off.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Anyway, but did you see the video of the poor son of a gun guard who
yeah. He
fell
passed out. Yeah,
right on his face?
like fully. He did that thing where when you fall and then the back of your body goes
Yeah.
up. It's like you kind of do like the fish
Yeah.
thing.
A bunch of people in suits ran to his side, but like everybody else just has to stand there as if it's not happening. And the dead
You
queen's
cannot
behind
move
him
it.
in her coffin.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they get him stood up. It's his turn to move forward and he stumbles to the side and he's forever going to be known as that guy. Do you think he went home that night or in his dressing room? I don't know where they get changed. And just like everybody was razzing him.
You know what my first thought was that he did it on purpose so that he could get out of standing there.
Or he had somebody, he's like, this is going to be big on TikTok.
Or like maybe he like held his breath a little bit so that he
Yeah.
made himself pass out.
Yeah.
As a child, I will tell you that to get out of punishments, I would hold my breath until I passed out. So it can be done.
That is very concerning.
It is. I'm not really sure what's going on up here. I don't know how many brain cells I killed doing that, but do not recommend.
Have your kids ever done it?
My kids have done the crying so hard that they stop breathing.
Oh, okay.
And that is the most terrifying. I remember I think it was Julia. I remember holding her in my arms and she was crying so hard because she hurt herself,
Yeah.
like she hit her head or something. She did that thing where they start crying and no sound is coming out.
Oh.
It just went completely limp in my
Oh
arms.
my God.
Like I have never felt like an entire body just go limp
Yeah.
before. And I remember holding her and at the same time I said, Julia, I shook my arms. I was like,
Yeah.
Julia. And she like came back.
Oh,
But holy cow, that feeling was awful.
no, that's too scary.
Oh, it was so scary.
Wow, what was
How was
I?
your
My week was good. It's so busy at work. And like now I'm getting leads for event spaces at the same pace as
Oh,
everybody
wow.
else, which is really nice. But
Yeah.
holy smokes, it's so busy, but it's good.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I'm going to Winnipeg this week on Tuesday. I
Yes.
keep forgetting, and I'm really worried that I'm just going to go to work Tuesday and not have packed and then I'll be like, oh, I need to be at the airport in half an hour. But hopefully I'll just remember. I'm going to spread my dad's ashes. That's probably going to be a horrible
Oh,
thing, but like maybe a
no
beautiful
kidding.
thing. And my cousin
Yeah,
is getting married.
right.
Twofer, a little,
Ash spreading in a little
yeah,
bit.
just come
Why not?
full circle, visit with my family that I don't see often.
Yeah,
And
that'll be nice.
yeah, I think it'll be good. Yeah, I don't know. What I was gonna say, the funniest thing that I did, we have like a top load washer, not a
Okay.
front
Yeah.
load.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 times now I have filled it, put soap in it, put the little Febreze beads in it,
Yeah.
and then walked away without closing it. And so the
Oh,
whole thing
okay.
fills up with water and then it just
Stops.
doesn't continue its cycle because the lid is wide open.
Oh, that is so funny.
I think it's because I start it and then the lid's open and then I pour the soap in and then I put the thing in and then I put the soap
Yeah, yeah.
back and I just turn around and walk away.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
funny. And your laundry is
I
what are you
guess we'll just
doing?
soak here until you realize it. And
Yeah.
then yesterday, a few times, I was like, oh, I got to go flip the laundry, but I just never did. And then Lindsay
Oh,
went down there this morning and she was like, oh, the washing machine lid was open. So
that's so
now it's
funny.
extra clean because it's
I'm
soaked.
having a washing machine issue right now, and I think it's because it's a front loader. I do not like front load
No,
washing
I
machines.
prefer top
I
load.
feel like, yeah, I feel like they're very
Hmm.
finicky. For some reason right now mine is not it's not doing the drain and spin thing. It'll get an error and then you open it and the clothes are like sopping wet. It doesn't have just a spin function because I just want to put it on spin
Yeah.
to get the
Get the
clothes
water out.
dry. No, but you have to rinse and spin. Like I don't want to add more water. I just want to spin.
Yeah.
But there's no way to just
Like, are you
spin.
putting too many clothes in? Is it a balance issue?
That's what my mother
Oh.
said, but no, because you're putting too many clothes in there. I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like, I know how to do
Yeah, you've been
laundry,
doing
like, that's
laundry
half
since you were
my life.
12. Yeah.
So to test it, I did another load with, like,
Yeah.
half, and it did the same thing.
You gotta call your
So,
landlord. This is the benefit of being a renter is that if something goes awry, you just call your landlord and he's gotta fix it.
I know, but I'm traumatized. I'm traumatized by anything now that happens. It's gonna be a reason to evict me
Right.
because of the last people.
Right.
But my landlord is really good. He's super nice. He's just like, anything you need, let me know. So I know it's
Yeah.
fine. It's just like another thing.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
I wanted to say something. I talked a little bit about it on our Patreon, but when I dropped the kids off at the school, I was wearing I did not sign up for this hoodie because it was
Yeah.
cold. And I felt so awkward wearing it. I don't know why, but people kept looking at me and I was like, I don't like this. And I don't know if you've experienced it when you're wearing it. It was just too many people at the school trying to read my sweater. And I was like, I don't like this. And then a couple days later, I was talking to one of the moms who I've met since school started. She was talking about having the kids over today. And I was like, oh, that would be great. Because I was like, ooh. And I'm like, I have a podcast and we record on Sundays. And she's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, what? And she knew and listened to the podcast before her and I ever met.
That's
And
so
then she put together
wild.
that it's me. And I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. And then another mom's like, what? You have a podcast? I'm like, I gotta
No,
go.
I don't. And just run away, throw your hoodie
I'm like,
away.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think that I'm good at
We're
because
never gonna
I
get a
like
brand deal with that attitude.
as soon as they started asking me, my face was just like instantly red. And she was like, it's pretty highly ranked, hey? And I was like, yeah,
Oh my
I guess.
God. That's
Awkward.
really funny.
Yeah, but it's cute.
Maybe if it's highly ranked, I need to put this out there. My stepdaughter's bike was stolen
Oh
from her
yeah.
dad's house. And so Lindsay put it on like the neighborhood community Facebook page.
Yeah.
Somebody sent her a dash cam footage and she was like, I was just driving today and I saw a man riding this bike and it caught my eye because it's such a bright color and he's way too big for it. So
Oh
she
my God.
sent a picture and that's her bike, like less than a block from her dad's house. And I guess it looked like he was like scoping out yards.
What a
Yeah. And so
scumbag.
I'm like, are we getting bats? We going out driving around this
Yeah,
neighborhood, like looking for this man on this
totally.
bike? Yeah. Like I,
You gotta get a stick and you stick it in the wheel and then he flies off.
yeah,
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
I
That's
hate
awful.
that. Like I've had
Yeah.
my bike stolen and it's such a like vile, what's that called? Like
Yeah, violation.
violation.
Like it
Yeah.
feels yeah. Yeah, that's awful.
And then
That's an
to,
awful feeling. I've had like my vehicle gone through and you're just like, God, like
yeah.
now somebody's been
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Ugh, just feels
I had a
weird.
friend once who had somebody go into her house and took a shower, had a drink from like a beverage in the fridge, like poured a glass, wrote a love note. Like this person was maybe either under the influence or had some mental health problems and was
No.
like writing like a journal entry on a piece of paper. So they got home and they didn't really notice right away, but like a cupboard was left open. Then they
Right.
were like, that's weird that this glass was just left on the counter like this with some liquid in it. And then they didn't notice the note right away, but they went up and in their bathroom, the towel was on the floor.
Oh my
And so they
god.
started piecing it all together and they called the police at like somebody had been in their house for at least an hour, I'd say. They could have come home at any
That's
time.
awful.
What a violating.
Oh,
Oh, I hate that.
yeah. Ooh, that's awful.
Not
Ooh.
great.
Somebody could break into my house and, like, leave a glass, and I'd be like, "Yeah, that's okay." That's always been there, right?
Oh
Oh,
my
that's creepy.
God. All right. We should get, are you trying to catch a fly?
Yeah, there's a little
I
tiny
had a little
aphid
aphid in
flying
here
around.
earlier too. Maybe it went through
Rude,
my
trying
computer
to
into
make a good
yours.
break
Yeah, they're trying to
here.
see each other on
Yeah.
camera.
"Hey, Frank, can you see
Judy,
me?"
is that you? Oh, God. All right, let's get into today's episode. Okay,
Okay.
bye. Hello, Lauren.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm good. So, I will just give a little introduction to myself. I grew up with an abusive father, and my mom was always there for me. She was great. Love her to death. I got my wisdom teeth taken out and ended up getting addicted to opiates. And I had never taken a pill or anything like that before in my life until that time. And that's when my whole addiction started. So that's just a little
Wow.
synopsis
That's
of
wild. And how old were you when you got your wisdom teeth out?
I was 16.
Like,
Wow.
I just think like 16, you're just a baby. Like, now that I'm
Yeah,
in my 30s, 16 just feels so little and innocent.
Oh, yeah.
exactly. I see on my TikTok a lot that people will say, oh, you're blaming your addiction on other things, but that's not the case. It's explaining how the addiction started
Mhm.
so that other people can realize that this is what happens and this is what leads up to addiction. I take full responsibility, but 16-year-old me, 16-year-old child, I
Yeah.
refuse to take responsibility for becoming addicted off of a substance, a drug that I was prescribed after getting my wisdom teeth taken out,
I mean,
especially
Yeah.
yeah. Any
growing
one of
up.
us is gonna take the doctor's advice, and they tell you to take this, and you're gonna go fill your prescription, and you're gonna take it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I was prescribed. So when I went and got my wisdom teeth taken out, I was prescribed, I was 16 years old. I'm 25 now. So almost 10 years ago. And they prescribed me 30 10 milligram oxycodone. That's a month's worth, obviously.
Yeah.
You will get addicted. You will become addicted within, it depends on the person, but I would say 2 weeks. So I had that first script and I was taking them daily. And then I got a dry socket. That's
Oh, yeah, I've had one
the
of
thing
those.
after what can happen after
Yeah.
teeth removal. So I went back in. It was painful. I go back in and they give me another script of the oxycodone. The biggest thing is that they never told me this is a very addictive substance. You need
Mhm.
to be
Yeah.
careful. And then the biggest thing is that they didn't offer or mention a taper plan. If I
Oh.
were to
Right.
have been not cut off cold turkey and going through withdrawals at 16 years old, and if I would have been weaned off of this medication, there is a high chance that I would not have become an addict for 8 years.
Right.
Mhm.
So, because it helps the withdrawals physically and mentally, you shut down. So, if you wean off, then you're able to actually continue working, continue. Like I had, a business that I was trying to run, and that came on later in
Yeah.
Mhm.
my addiction. I was also embarrassed. I was 16 years old and I wasn't going to come up to my mom or my dad, and who was a psycho, and say, I got addicted to opiates. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the first thing that they're going to think is, send her to rehab, send her to detox because they don't know. I just personally don't think that would have been the best thing for me. I don't know. And everyone's different.
What was your understanding of drugs at 16? We talked before we officially started about what we learn in school. So, what did you know about drugs and drinking and addiction in general at 16?
Yes, I remember my parents had said since I was little, don't do drugs, drugs are bad, the typical thing. And
Mhm.
that's what most parents just know. And I remember in school when I was being taught about substance abuse and drug addictions, well, all that stuff. It was my librarian that was talking about it, who has no prior experience with drugs or substance abuse. A lot of times they start saying words like neurotransmitters and they bring science
Mhm.
into the discussion. And you're going to lose kids like that because they hear those words and they don't want to listen anymore. So you need to be, I think, relatable to these kids, and real addicts need to be coming in and recovered, obviously,
Mhm. Mhm.
coming
Yeah.
in and talking to the kids with a story, something that they can follow, and that they're
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, so her addiction started from a wisdom tooth removal. And then she went and started seeking out pills on the street because she was going through such awful withdrawals.
Mhm.
And then after that, I ended up going through, I couldn't find any more. I was withdrawing again. And then I was introduced to Xanax. Then
Mm.
that was my kicker. That went downhill. And I had never heard about Xanax being talked about in these drug talks that you have from your
Yeah.
parents or from schools or
Yeah.
from anywhere,
Yeah,
and you
like
don't hear.
I remember learning that like I would be walking down the street and somebody from an alley would come in and offer me heroin or cocaine. It wasn't something that I might find in a medicine cabinet or in
Yeah.
somebody's bag. You know,
Uh-huh.
my theory was that it was going to be like shady people coming at me with needles.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's 99% of addictions do not start with, hey, let me see that needle you have right there, I want to stick that up my arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
People do and get to that point because they're addicted, they're going through withdrawals. When you're going through those types of withdrawals, that needle becomes more of a relief than a fear, because
Mhm.
people
Right.
will say, oh, I would never stick a needle up my arm. Go through some withdrawals like that and you see that needle and you're like, that's going to make me feel better. It gets a
Yeah,
little bit
not
more tempting.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I personally never went to heroin. I was thankfully never introduced. That was the only reason that I didn't do it, because I know that I would have if it was introduced to me. And right now is obviously the most dangerous time to be playing around, messing around with pills off the street,
Mhm.
Yeah.
especially. Fentanyl is in, I would say, 80% of all street pills.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's another thing that I think people don't understand is, and I didn't understand it. I was buying Xanax from off the street, whatever, for years. My addiction, I was taking 8+ milligrams a day. So
Wow.
I was taking a lot. And I would pick up a batch and I would take a little bit of it, just because this is my thought process, that I was going to take a little bit and then I would be able to tell if this batch was going to be good or if it
Right.
was going to maybe make me overdose or
Right.
something like that, because there's something inside of this drug that is a pressed pill. And that's actually very bad. It doesn't mean anything that you took that one little bite and you're like, oh, I'm fine. Because that one little bite could have the amount of fentanyl in it that kills you. Just because that maybe you took the whole pill and you're like, oh, I'm fine. Other pills in that batch are going to, these aren't chemists
Yeah.
Yeah.
making these concoctions for you to take. These are just people, your everyday dude on the street in their basement putting this stuff together. And it might be an accident, it might not be on purpose, but either way, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem in today with everything. I truly believe that if I were to have been doing what I was doing, abusing and doing drugs the way that getting them off the streets, doing all the things I was doing in today's day, I would be dead
Wow.
because
Yeah.
the amount that I was taking, the amount that I had come across, there's no way that not one of those pills would have had fentanyl in it in today's
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Who told you, or how did you come up with the idea that you were going through withdrawals and you couldn't get Oxy, so you needed to find something else?
Yeah, so I actually withdrew from the oxys, and since I had grown up in an abusive household, my dad, the Xanax, I had already gone through the withdrawals of the opiates. So I was done with that. I was like, okay. And the opiates it's not my drug of choice, actually. And that's what I found out when I was introduced to the Xanax. So I had gone through the withdrawals, but I was still the opiates made me happier. And so it made me feel just a little bit happier in my life, in my home, when I was always afraid. And then when I withdrew from that and I'm back to normal, but also mentally not back to normal because it's not
Yeah.
been long enough. And I was introduced to Xanax by a friend. And I didn't have any intention of getting addicted to it either,
Yeah.
but I tried it. And that was all it took, one time trying it, because taking Xanax makes you feel like everything could be on fire and you don't care. So
Yeah.
in my
Wow.
house, it was the first time that I really felt like safe and just didn't care because like I said, it could be on my house could be on fire and I wouldn't care. So if my
Yeah.
dad's
Oh.
being abusive, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, no
like
worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
then I realized that I like the downers because it makes me not feel,
Mhm.
basically.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that was how that happened and transpired into that. And then the Xanax never stopped. And I will tell you, an addict will go to any length to get their drug of choice or any
Yeah.
drug at that point if they're withdrawing.
How do you find
How do you
Yeah.
find it? Yeah. So I was just introduced to it from friends. And then after that, yeah, you'll do anything basically to get it. And so I was also in college. I was a freshman in college at that point. I had started Xanax a little bit before that, but I got really heavy into it in college. And that's how I was able to get it so easily. I was at the bar.
Mm.
You would be surprised at how many people have this stuff and they're like, I'm not kidding, like in med school,
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
you have no idea. So it was like these people that I would just come across and we would vibe, whatever. And then they're like, oh, yeah, like I have Xanax. Or I would see somebody had Xanax. I'm like, oh, where did you get that? I was picking it up from people that I didn't even know. There are so many ways, and addicts
Mhm.
will
Yeah.
find ways to get what they want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I think is just the biggest way of how addicts find things. It's just really easy. The opiates are harder to find now, and that's why you're seeing so many of these pressed per 30s. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's fentanyl, like they're fentanyl and like some other stuff mixed together, and they're just fake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is
That's so
fentanyl
scary.
added? I don't even, maybe you don't know, but I really don't know. Is fentanyl added because it's cost effective for the distributor, or are they adding it because it is dangerous and they want to kill people? I don't
So
know.
there's a lot about this. I would love to talk about it. Fentanyl is added to it is a cost thing, cost effective for
Yeah.
the dealer, and it will make you a lot higher, out of this world. So they will put it into these pills to make them stronger so that they're the and with some don't have intention of killing people, but they might, but they're going to put this in there to make it stronger. Say I, for example, was getting Xanax with fentanyl in it. Now I wouldn't know, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that Xanax is stronger from this plug than it is from
Right.
this plug, so I'm going to go to
Yeah.
this plug,
Yeah.
and that's the one
Yeah.
with fentanyl in it. So
Uh,
it's a kind of a
Keeps you
marketing
coming
tactic.
back, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a
yeah.
marketing tactic as well. And then they also, in really bad areas, like for example, Baltimore has been hit really hard by the opiate epidemic. and they will actually have people, and these are in bad areas, like people don't even believe it because they don't see it,
Yeah.
but will actually have make pills just packed with fentanyl. So addicts will literally on the corner, like corner boys that will be out there, they will be lining up to get these pills, and then there's going to be a certain, they know, these dealers know that there's going to be a certain amount of ODs, and then that word is going to spread, and then all of these addicts are going to come and try and be seeking out their dope in that specific strength. Even though it made the other person OD, they might not have died because somebody around could have Narcan,
Yeah.
but there are and there will continue to be deaths by that marketing tactic that these dealers are using. And then people will ask me, okay, I don't see that, but I hear of people dying from fentanyl all the time in my
Mhm.
suburbs. I'm like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, that's because these pills are also sent and distributed to other surrounding areas, and those pills might be the ones where that they just accidentally put too much into a pill
Right.
and
Mhm.
somebody died because they know in those suburban areas it's not as bad, and people aren't going those aren't the people that are going to be lining up taking
Yeah.
Mhm.
these like when they have the batch ready. Yeah, there's fentanyl is just a huge problem,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's scary. It's really scary.
It's
I
so
actually,
scary.
and this is also something I want to say. It's very important, and I think a lot of people either forget or they just don't know. But if you are with a friend or anyone and you see that and you're using drugs and they're using drugs and they have a seizure or they start to overdose or anything like that, call 911. You are not going to get in trouble.
Mhm.
You are going to save their life, and it's you won't get in trouble. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're not, I don't know if there's like a law or something about that, but you won't get
Yeah.
in trouble for
Okay.
calling to help and saving this person's life. I actually had a friend who passed away in high school. I don't know what they were doing. I know that they were smoking some weed, whatever. He started having a seizure and they were in a car, but what they did because they were afraid of getting in trouble
Oh
was
no.
drop him, throw, I don't know how they got him, drug him out of the
Yeah.
car having the seizure, put him in his front yard, and he passed away in his front yard, and his mother found him.
Oh my
Oh.
And
God.
they could have just taken him to the hospital and none of them
Yeah.
would have gotten in trouble. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's something that kids need to know is that always call 911 if there's an issue. You will not get in trouble. I have been around, I've seen multiple people overdose, and I've found people overdose after where there's nothing I could do about it.
Yeah.
And that was actually when I had started dancing. I found a dancer in the bathroom who had overdosed. And it's just super scary. And there's usually people are around, not always, but if you are around, please call 911. You will
Yeah.
Yeah.
not get in trouble.
Oh gosh,
And
that's so
did you,
scary.
if you can think back now to being 16, was there anything your parents should have noticed to know? Or I guess, what was the period where all of a sudden your parents or your peers or people started to know about your addiction?
So that's the crazy part is that nobody knew about my addiction. And my parents didn't know, my mom, my dad, nobody knew. And they didn't know until after I recovered. And I told them
Wow.
Wow.
because I didn't want them to worry. If I would have told my mom, hey, I'm a drug addict, she would be up all night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I I just was like, I didn't want to do that. So when I had friends, like people that I lived with, that would see certain things that are red flags for sure, but they just didn't know the extent of it. And it's normalized in college to take things.
Mhm.
And so they didn't,
Experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, experiment. And they didn't realize that and I was hiding it. I was taking 8 or more milligrams a day. For example, here's a red flag of something that I did. I invited after taking some Xanax. I invited one of my friends. I was like, "Hey, let's go out tonight." So she gets ready, and I'm thinking it was about like an hour later. I had fallen asleep because the drugs knocked me out.
Yeah.
And she walks through my front door because she's one of my friends, so she just walked in, and I like wake up and I go, "What are you doing here?" I had
Oh.
no memory of
Yeah.
inviting her to go out an hour prior.
Right.
That is a huge red flag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's things like that but people wouldn't notice because I was so high functioning and I could even actually take these pills and go out and drink on top of it and
Wow.
go to the bar. Yeah, like the tolerance that I had made no sense. I would go out to the bar, I would drink on top of it, and I would keep up with the drinks that everyone else was taking not on drugs.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's another reason nobody knew because I was acting the same as them. I could keep myself together. I wasn't
Yeah.
stumbling, I wasn't slurring over my words. I seemed perfectly fine. I had a good job in college. I had A's and B's. I was taking chemistry and had A's
Wow.
in chemistry. Like, it's just really interesting how drugs affect people differently. But I do have one story. So I had run out of Xanax, and this is just like this is where an addict's brain goes basically when you run out
Yeah.
of your preferred drug. So my dog was prescribed like some kind of anxiety medicine. I don't remember what it was called, but it was in a blue bottle, whatever. I would take these drugs before going to class. I was about to actually go to get,
Wow.
yeah, so that was normal for me to do that. And so I
Yeah.
took this and I was just like, okay, like I had to go give a presentation in class. And I get up to give my presentation. I go to class, get up to give the presentation. All of a sudden, I'm feeling weird. I'm like, this is not good. I remember I got through about three-fourths of the presentation, and my speech started to just wither away. Like it wasn't coming out of my mouth anymore.
Oh my
And
God.
so I just flipped because I had two slides left. So I just flipped. And then I was like, I think I'm going to pass out. And then I walked to the door. I was like, I think I'm going to pass out. And I walked to the door because I was like, I need to get some water. I didn't really know what was happening because I wasn't getting blurry vision
Yeah.
or anything like that. But I knew something was wrong. So the last thing I remember, clear as day, was grabbing the door handle of the classroom. And this is what I was told now after. So I grabbed the door handle and passed out, but I clenched it. And so when I clenched the door handle, I swung myself and with the weight of the door into a concrete wall and hit my head
Oh
on the
no.
concrete wall and fell to the ground in front of the whole classroom. Like,
Oh
and
God.
I'm the full attention because I was just giving a presentation.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I passed out in the only building that EMTs are in that building because they have a gym there. Yeah, so the EMTs actually did get there like within a couple of minutes, and they asked me, "Had you taken anything?" I say, "Oh, I don't remember this part. I don't remember 2 weeks after the of this event. This is just what I was told because one of my good friends was in the class and they were right up next to me listening to what was going on. And they asked me, "Are you on anything? Did you take anything?" I lied. I said
Yeah,
no.
of course.
And then they asked me, "How old are you?" I was 21 at the time. And I told them I was 19 because I didn't know. They were like, "Where do you know where you are?" And I was like, "I'm in a classroom." I didn't know like where.
Yeah.
I was just confused. So that's just something that can happen where your addict brain takes you to these weird things. Like, who would
Yeah.
ever take their dog's medication? An addict.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
There's just so many crazy things that it can make you do.
And so what's that turning point towards where you start thinking recovery?
So for me, I knew it was a problem, not for a while. It took probably about 2 years of the Xanax addiction before I realized that it was a problem. And I realized at that point, but that wasn't when I stopped. I stopped for a little bit and then I came back to school and started using again. My turning point didn't happen. I had over 5 relapses. So
Wow.
I would try and stop taking them and I would relapse every single time. So I had moved to Florida. I had started dancing because I had no money. And I started actually learning from these men that I was coming into contact with that had a lot of money. I was asking them questions and trying to figure out because I had graduated, I had my degree, but I couldn't work a 9 to 5 job because
Yeah.
of the addiction. And also, I was making more money dancing in 6 months than I would have made at my job in a whole year. So
Wow.
that made it really hard for me to try and transition out of that. The biggest turning point was when I decided to invest in, well, in an Amazon FBA course, starting my own business on Amazon and working from home. And I had the money to invest because I was dancing. And so I went through all of that. That's when I was like, okay, I need to get myself together a little bit. 6 months went on. And then after that, like starting period of building my business. And then when my product was about to launch, was when I was like, okay, this isn't. And then I had started my TikTok and I was gaining TikTok following for my dog. And then I've created other ones as well. And I was like, this isn't going to fit my lifestyle. Like, I'm trying to make a lot of money and I can't be on Xanax every day
Yeah.
or at all. And that's when I was like, all right, something's got to be done. But I've relapsed 5 times doing what I had done before. And I couldn't leave my dogs. I couldn't leave where I was living. I was alone in Florida and I had to pay rent. I had to take care of my dogs. And I know a lot of people come across that with kids and they just don't know what to do. So what I did was I started weaning myself off, and it took so much mind power to do that because I had them all. I could
Yeah.
take them if I wanted them. But for about a month, I cut down a milligram. And then a month later, I would cut down more and more until I was all the way off. So I never went through those withdrawal symptoms as severe as you would
Mm-hmm.
cold turkey or
Yeah.
going to a detox center. And I was able to keep my mental and physical health good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Better than maybe another scenario. And that is how I got off of and also I started taking an antidepressant because I knew that my serotonin and dopamine levels were very low.
Yeah.
And this medication was just meant to boost my serotonin and dopamine levels. They didn't know that I was weaning off of another substance. I just did my own research on that. Okay, is everything going to be good if I do
Yeah.
this? Like,
Yeah.
can I mix these drugs together? So that's what I did. I personally think that is one of the best ways. Everyone's different,
Yeah.
but one of the best ways to get off of a substance, if you are a high functioning addict that can't up and leave and you have that mind power to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I also like when it comes to heroin or meth or crack or something like that's when you really need to go get professional help because you can die over and you can die from Xanax withdrawals as well. That needs to be you can have seizures and stuff like that. So that's why you need to taper and be really careful. That was my big turning point and what worked for me and kept me off of it because it just leveled out over time with my mental
Mm-hmm.
health. And then I was going through the trauma of like abuse and all of that from when I was younger.
Yeah.
And that's what really did it for me. And I've replaced my addiction with something else. Like I like to go to the gym, but that's hard to do right at the beginning because your body
Yeah.
feels awful.
Yeah.
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 So I replaced the my addiction with learning all that I needed to know about Amazon. So becoming addicted to work in my business, and some people are like, well, "That's bad too." It's a lot better than being addicted to pills. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. It's not going to kill
Yeah.
you, right? Yeah.
exactly. Replacing the addiction and weaning off to keep my mental health and physical health in a good place to be able to go and carry out my daily tasks. That was the best way for me.
Yeah. Are you
So
doing all of this alone? Like the relapses, are you letting anybody in on what you're trying to do?
I
No.
didn't. No.
No.
Do
Yeah,
you
with
wish you
those.
had
That's a good question, actually.
like a friend or I don't know?
Accountability person?
I had said before that if I hadn't been high functioning and someone would have noticed that I was an addict, that I think I would have recovered a lot sooner. But do I wish I told somebody? I don't think so because then it would have their thoughts about how I should recover
Mm,
would be put then onto me when
The
I know
pressure. Yeah.
myself how I for me at least I knew myself what was going to work for me where if I were to say that to somebody they're going to say you need to go to treatment, you need to go to detox, you need to drop out of college, you need to where are my dogs going to go like
Yeah. Yeah.
I just couldn't. And so I don't regret that. And it also gave me so much knowledge about substance abuse and getting off of a drug by yourself and doing these relapses and what happens to your body. How are you going to feel? And so then now I can help other people set up a taper plan as a coach that will help them to, if anything, wean down a little bit. I actually have
Yeah.
gotten somebody off of taking 120 milligrams of oxycodone a day to zero.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Holy.
has made me so happy. I just
Yeah.
I can't even express it. Like, it changes people's lives because who knows, that person 2 years from now, we wouldn't have come into contact, could have
Mhm.
been shooting up heroin because they couldn't find the opiates anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I guess everybody's different in their recovery and what works
Mhm.
for them. Some people might need to have the support of family and friends and
Yes.
have the accountability and have somebody checking up on them.
Yeah, and the dancing also made me realize that that's not something that anyone. It works for some people, and
Mhm.
I never am dogging a dancer ever, but it's a dark industry,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it causes trauma. It just does. I don't, even if they say it's not, it is. And that was like, I realized the people that I was around, and it was just, I knew if I stayed in that environment, I was going to go downhill really fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like downhill to the point that I was probably shooting up or
Yeah.
Yeah.
doing other things, fentanyl. You can
Yeah.
shoot up fentanyl. It's
Oh
just,
gosh.
yeah, it's just really just mind boggling, I guess, because of how different substances affect different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing that if you stayed in that industry, things were going to go bad for you, and probably similar to an alcoholic working at a bar. Like you don't want to put yourself in a position when you know that you can easily fall back into addiction.
I've abused many substances, but my only drug of choice, like even if someone were to like the opiates and the oxycodone wasn't even, because that's an upper. Though that was just the first thing I came across that made me feel better.
Mhm.
But the Xanax was the downer that made me feel better. That is just when you start playing around with these other drugs and you have your drug of choice, then it's like I could drink on top of my drug of choice. But I
Right.
was never an alcoholic. I never was like, oh, I gotta drink. It made me sick. I couldn't get up in the morning and drink more. Like, I get hangovers. I just couldn't possibly be. So it really like also boils down to your drug of choice and making sure that after you get out of addiction that you're not around any person that dabbles or that is in any kind of environment doing that stuff, because it's
Yeah.
going to come back to you. Even if they don't do it around you, you're still involved with a person like that.
Yeah.
You just can't. It's
Yeah.
not a good idea.
And how do you fight off those days where you think if I just took a pill, like I'd feel better? Or like, how do you deal with the trauma of your past and not taking Xanax and
Yeah.
working through it instead?
So that was really a difficult thing especially like starting out at the beginning, because since I was 16, since I was a kid, like really, I was using substances to solve or lessen my issues or
Yeah.
lessen
Yeah.
my issues to myself, problems. It was like I had to relearn how to go through my emotions sober in a healthy way and actually letting those emotions out is the healthy
Yeah.
way. Like,
Mhm.
not just taking a pill to suppress it, but actually letting those tears out or talking. That's when I really started opening up about the abuse and just trauma and stuff like that. Talking really helped me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
also, I have to say TikTok did as well. When you're having like that craving or it's that moment and you have a trigger or something and you're just like, oh, I want one so bad. And you go on to TikTok and you start looking at like recovery stuff or like content or even things that I like. I personally like things that have to do with the brain and mind. So listening to somebody that's a doctor and they're talking about the brain and mind and how it works. So just getting a more of an understanding of what I was going through with wanting more of that. And then with the trauma, I did do some therapy after with my dad, or not with my, actually, I did do that with him one time, but didn't go very well. So
Yeah.
I was doing the therapy myself, and that did help me through the trauma part of it, because you can sit back and think about all the things that were done to you over and over again, but it's not gonna necessarily help you at all.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
just got to figure out how to work past it. And TikTok has a lot of good resources
Yeah.
on how to recover, stay sober,
Yeah.
and it also just gives you hope too, that you can recover and you can have a life better than you can have ever imagined
Mhm.
for yourself. That's like the best part of it. Like when I look back and I'm just like, wow, I did all of that. And how you were saying, like, how did no one really realize? Like, my
Mhm.
mom, she had said, because we had talked about this and stuff, and she didn't know. Like, some days she would be like, oh, like, she sounds tired or something like that. But
Mhm.
you see, a lot of parents and people don't know those small signs. My
Yeah.
voice would also be very like, because it really relaxes everything in you, so it's going to relax the tone of your voice as well. So when you're talking more like this,
Oh,
Mhm.
that's so
Yeah.
interesting.
that's a big sign.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's just knowing those little things. Like, and of course she's not going to know because she's never been around it.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important to teach children, and not only children, but adults,
Mhm.
about substance abuse and drugs and the real scenarios that happen
Yeah.
that lead to substance
Because
abuse.
you're not just gonna walk in on your kid shooting up. You're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna maybe catch your kid drinking, or
Yeah.
you might not even catch them doing drugs because they're gonna hide it, especially if they're first starting. They're not gonna be like, hey, mom, I'm
Yeah.
taking this pill tonight. They're
Yeah.
just gonna go and do it. And we do need to start teaching 8-year-olds
Yeah.
about drug addiction, because it is actually starting so much sooner than it was 10 years ago. Teaching kids about out like the names at the beginning, I think that it's for a 10-year-old or something like that, someone younger. You can do something like this. Okay, here is your baseline of happiness. I don't like the words neurotransmitters, anything
Right.
scientific, because you're going to lose their attention immediately. Get their engagement, keep it. Say your happy levels. This is your happy levels, the naturally that your brain produces. So when you take a substance or a drug, it's gonna go woo really high, and
Yeah.
then you're gonna come down, and you're gonna be like, oh, I need that again. So you're gonna come up, but you're not gonna come up as high the next time, and you're gonna go down again. Then all of a sudden you're stagnant and you're hitting the ground, and you're trying to, and you just hit
Yeah.
and hit until you're just on the bottom. When you get to be about 15 years old, 14, 15, then I think that it needs to be talked about, the drugs that doctors prescribe. And
Yeah.
it's not just for them, it's to inform them and how they're addicting and what can lead up to that point. I didn't know what oxycodone was before I went in to get my wisdom teeth taken
Yeah.
out. Like, what? I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is okay. Like,
It's coming
I
from a
think of it as like,
doctor.
yeah, you can think of it as like an ibuprofen or something. You
Yeah.
don't know. I didn't even know this. And I wouldn't have even known this if this never happened to me.
Yeah, of course.
It's just so insane. I have no other
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, and like we said, it just happened for you so innocently.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the people that I help out of addiction, I would say 90% of them that have reached out to me to help them got addicted from a surgery and being prescribed.
Oh God.
And that made me realize how much I was not alone. And that was after I had recovered, but it just made me realize how prevalent this is and that it is a huge problem. Oh, and another reason that nobody knew about my addiction was I was getting very good grades in college. So
Mhm.
I had when I graduated, my GPA was like a 3.6, 3.7. It was something
Oh,
like that.
wow. But I think
I
that's it. People think that addicts are living on the streets and unable to work, a
Legend,
drain on
yeah.
society, but like they're
Yes.
actually in college
There
working.
Yes, I get DMs of lawyers contacting me saying that they are taking opiates and drinking and washing it down with a bottle of Jack, and
Oh
they're
God.
performing well with their clients, like they're doing well, and they're not going to want to admit it to anyone that they know. I want to be the person for other addicts that were like me and
Mhm.
help them out of addiction because I know it's possible because I did it.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I've helped other people do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, that's another reason of why I do not regret being an addict and having these relapses and going through these awful experiences, and is because it has made me be able to help other people out of this experience, like
Yeah.
this terrible spot.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it just makes me happy. And
That's
it makes me
amazing.
happy that I was able to get out of it, start my own business, and have the time to actually help these people.
I think it's such an interesting perspective, and I think it's so much more common than we think it is.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Where can people find you online? On Instagram, TikTok?
Yeah, so TikTok, it's addiction to entrepreneur. I'm going to start an Instagram, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. And I know that TikTok is just way more outreach that I can
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
people.
Thank you so much for being on our
Thank you.
podcast and sharing your story. It's incredible and important and will save a lot of
Mhm.
lives.
Thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate you guys reaching out to me. This has been awesome, and I can't
Yeah.
wait to see it.
Awesome. Yeah, I will. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll send you a message with the link on it and we'll tag you on TikTok with it.
Okay, perfect. Yay.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You guys too.
All right.
It was
Talk to
Thank
you later.
you. You
bye.
Bye.
too. Bye.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
What like I know I've brought this up so many times. I want to listen back to just the intros and outros of every single episode to
Yeah.
hear the progression of when it became a hey Michelle, hey Carling. We have a
Yeah.
very I can see the wave in my head of what that looks like.
That's so funny. Yeah, you should go back and literally just like clip that out of every
Yeah.
episode and we'll do like a compilation
Hey
of
Michelle, hey Carling, hey Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
Oh,
It does go very up
yeah,
and then
it's so
down.
funny. Lauren, thank you so flipping much for being on our podcast.
Absolutely. That was so interesting. I don't think a lot of people talk about addiction
Yeah, it's like the
and
side of addiction that you don't consider. It could be literally any of us that are prescribed something that has an addictive quality and like without the resources or
absolutely.
education or knowledge or whatever. You pointed out that in the whole intro we didn't talk about the Patreon. It's like we don't even want to
No,
be
where's our
successful.
business sense here?
My
Unbelievable.
God, what is Patreon?
Patreon is a monthly subscription that you can sign up for that gives you bonus content of our podcast, and it helps support the show and the work that we do, and it gives you back at least 2 brand new episodes a month that will never be heard
Yeah.
anywhere else. Higher levels, you get a video, you get discounts off of our
Yep.
merch, you get Patreon episodes a day early.
Ooh, I've
Yeah,
got a pile of packages that I'm sending out to our $10 patrons, our ultimate
amazing. Yeah,
softies.
you'll get little surprises from us, and then you get entered into
Oh,
draws that we
yeah.
have. We often have a guest who has either a book or a piece of
Or a
merch that we
service. Yeah.
auction off, or not
Giveaway.
auction off,
Yeah.
give away.
Yeah. And for
Uh,
October, we're interviewing a psychic medium out of New York, tarot
terrible.
reader. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's so funny. And she
Mhm.
is going to give away a signed copy of her book.
That's so
So,
awesome. And her book is very much like how to spot what to look for when you're looking for
yeah.
somebody like that. What are the things that you're looking for that will give you what you need and not scam
Yeah.
you. So it's more of an education on how to find the right
Yeah.
person.
That's cool.
So yeah, we're getting into spooky season. We've got a couple spooky interviews coming
Yeah.
up on our Patreon and on our main feed. So it's
Yeah.
pretty
I know.
exciting.
For somebody that doesn't like holidays, I sure get excited about our October episodes.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's something different, but it's still interesting. I
Yeah.
love it.
And also, so at our ultimate Sufty level, I know you love that name, we do shout outs. So our newest ultimate Sufty level member on Patreon is Erica. So, Erica, thank you
Yeah,
so stinking much for being an
thank you
ultimate
so
Sufty.
much. You are the ultimate softie.
Yeah,
So
it's a little
weird.
weird, but I'm open to changing the names. I think we need names, not just tier 1, 2, 3.
Oh no, I think
Yeah.
it works. I think it works. It has a very good
Yeah.
ring to it.
And then also, people should follow us on social media. We're
Yes, they
everywhere.
should.
Just look up I did not sign up for this.
We're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee if you guys ever want to support us in a way where you're not signing up for the
Mhm.
Patreon, but you want to support us as a one-time thing. Amazing, incredible.
Yeah.
We love that. And we just appreciate any time you guys share or send us messages about the episode or engage with us
Oh,
on
leave
social
us a
media.
review, especially if you're on Apple.
Leave us a
Yeah.
review. Yeah, and download our
Oh, yeah,
episodes.
do that too. God, we're asking a lot of people.
Why not just
Yeah.
ask for everything while we're
We're
here?
all I feel like there's some sort of like we're all in it together or like shoot for the stars or shoot for the moon. Shoot for the moon
Go straight to
all
the
the way.
top.
Either way, you'll land amongst the stars. I don't know. Something motivational.
Okay, all right, sure. Yeah,
We should
love it.
leave every
Hang in there, baby, that's what I say.
we should leave every episode with a motivational quote.
Okay, I'm gonna leave that to you because I hate
I know
motivational
you do. This
quotes.
is why I said it.
There is a guy on TikTok who I honestly cannot handle. He did this thing this week or maybe it was last week, but it was like, if you're hearing this message on September 12th, then this message is for you. I'm so proud of I'm like, as soon no, thank
I
you. I do not wanna hear that you're proud of me. I do not wanna hear that you think I'm doing a good job.
I send you those all the time.
Goodbye.
Once,
Um,
hey baby girl, I just want you to
ugh,
know I'm really proud of you.
no. Even the ones that are, like, sassy where it's like, "Unclench your
Yeah.
fucking jaw." I shouldn't swear. When they're like, "Unclench your jaw," and I was just like, "Don't tell me what to
I
do.
get hard
Why
now.
I want
Yeah.
to." Yeah.
God.
God. Anyway.
All right. I'm going to let you go, but have a great
Okay.
day. We
You
hope
as well,
everybody
and everybody
yeah.
else.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go eat some lunch.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye.